Welcome to How We Heard It, the podcast about music, pop culture, movies, and more, with your hosts Wayne Bledsoe and Chuck Campbell.
Oi, this is Chuck Campbell with
Wayne Bledsoe and
I'm John Baker.
Okay, today our topic is Gone Too Soon. We're talking about artists that unfortunately died, quote, before their time, whatever that means. Basically, they died young. The ones I'm going to focus on all died in their 20s, actually.
most of mine probably are in the 20s too.
Okay.
But some weren't, but most of them for sure.
So, we'll discuss their death a little bit and where they were, where their place in music was at that time, and what we may have lost by losing them, what they might have done, how much more success they might have had if they had lived.
And how much great music that we're missing out on because they're not here.
Right.
I mean, and the one that made me think of this
initially
was Jimi Hendrix, because of all the 2,700, the age 27 club where everybody died at 27.
Right.
He is the one among all of them that I think really did not reach, as great as he was, didn't reach his potential.
Oh, yeah, he had lots of headroom.
Yeah, he was still exploring, and he was right at the time he died, he was getting back into the blues. Miles Davis wanted to work with him on a jazz album.
Oh, cool.
And there were all sorts of things going on with him.
What was his cause of death?
He overdosed.
Okay.
But, I can't remember if he actually choked to death with the overdose. I think he did.
I'm resisting a Spinal Tap joke.
Yeah, no. But he was somebody that absolutely revolutionized guitar by teaching everybody how to play feedback.
Well, and look at pictures of him. His hands are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, they just go all the way around the neck.
And he was left-handed, playing a right-handed guitar upside down.
Okay.
So it wasn't a lefty guitar. It was a right-handed guitar just turned over.
How do you think that affected the sound? I mean, did it or the...
I'm sure it had an effect.
Yeah, it had to. But he heard so many things that other people didn't hear. And that was the thing that made him so special. I mean, not everybody could hear music in feedback. Nobody could hear, okay, I'm going to push this to the edge and then control it.
Right.
And then he was such a showman, but right before he died, he was dialing it all back because he wanted to get back to the essence and do some real blues stuff. He got Billy Cox, who was his bass player back when he was performing in Nashville, to start play with him in what was called the Band of Gypsies group that he had. And his last album, it was actually released after his death, Band of Gypsies, was a live album.
Mm-hmm.
But
he built his career on the flashy showmanship, playing behind his head and neck and all
with
that
his teeth.
I mean, even before he was the wild-eyed psychedelic guitarist. I mean, back in the late 50s and 60s.
How long was he popular then?
Well, he wasn't super popular then, but he just played in a whole bunch of different touring bands in what they called the Chitlin circuit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he got out of was he in the Air Force?
Yeah.
And got out of the Air Force and just started playing wild guitar in a bunch of different bands. Did he play with James Brown?
I don't think he played with James Brown. He played with Curtis Mayfield. No, it wasn't Curtis Mayfield. Trying to think who all he backed.
Yeah, I mean, he was just...
It was several people that were...
Who all did he influence that came along later?
Every guitar player in rock.
Yeah.
It was funny. So. When I interviewed Jeff Beck and we talked about him, he said that he saw him and it was just like, he just felt like giving up. Because it was just so amazing.
Good thing he didn't, because Jeff Beck's amazing. Yeah,
I mean, Jeff Beck is probably outside... he's my pick in rock guitar after Hendrix as being the greatest. But everybody listened to him and said, damn.
It just changed the parameter that you worked within as a guitar player.
Right. And when people like Miles Davis were listening to him and thinking they wanted to work with him, it just showed you, how everybody who was forward-thinking in music could hear something in what he was doing.
Right.
But, then he OD'd.
At 27.
At 27, and all this music we didn't get to hear.
Yeah. Almost certainly he would have had another 20, 30 years of influence and everything.
And doing something
provided
different.
He didn't eventually OD anyway. That was something that I kind of mentioned earlier.
Right.
That when people die of overdose or even suicide or something like that, it's like, well, if they hadn't died, would they be better? Or would they still be carrying along, whatever addiction or whatever they have?
Well, I think he's a good one to look at among the other people in the 27 Club who died.
Right.
Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones. I think Brian Jones is just completely burnt out by the time he died. I don't think he would have improved and gotten better. Right. It's just like, Sid Barrett, who didn't die, but he had all sorts of mental problems with Pink Floyd. He dropped out and never did any more music again.
Right.
And I think that might have been his fate. I think it probably would have been Jim Morrison's fate.
Right.
But, Jimi Hendrix and possibly Janis Joplin, because Janis Joplin died right at she hadn't even released her best album. It came out right after she died.
Right.
And Pearl was like far and away better than anything else she'd done before.
Okay.
So she probably would have done something else too that would have been great.
Yeah. I think those are factors to think about when looking at possible impact. Also, is like, what kind of ambition did they have? Where was their style of music in the spectrum of music when they died?
Yeah.
And just how messy were their lives? How much did they have it together too? So.
Yeah, I think with Hendrix, obviously he was an addict, but so had Miles. Miles Davis had been an addict too, and he holed himself up in a house and he kicked his heroin addiction on his own.
Did Miles Davis get better or worse after he kicked addiction, or was there no discernible difference? He got better.
Yeah,
okay.
Really. I mean, Bertha Cool, he was an addict. I think he kicked it around the time of Kinda Blue, someplace back around that era. And Kinda Blue is looked on as...
That's a classic.
Yeah, as maybe his best album. And then he started doing the fusion stuff in the 60s and did Bitches Brew and all these other albums that were really pushing the boundaries. So that was probably his peak in the 60s, but he made vital music all the way up till he died.
Yeah, that I don't know why that reminds me of Debbie Harry talking about heroin addiction,
mm-hmm.
and she said it's vastly educational, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. So you can learn and you can become a better artist by going through that, but then you might also die and not even
right.
So
you look at somebody like Jason Isbell, who was a severe alcoholic. And his music with the Drive-By Truckers was really good. And then he started, when they kicked him out because of his alcoholism, he did some good solo albums. But when he cleaned up, he's one of the few that when he cleaned up, that's when he became absolutely great.
He's just so focused.
Yeah. And, the songwriting is still there. I don't want to name some names that of people I know that cleaned up and their art wasn't as good. And I don't know what that was. I don't know why that was. Maybe it's their art, had to do with pain.
I think when you recover from addiction or a disease or something like their, suicidal tendencies or whatever, right. I think you become another person.
Yeah.
So you're not going to create art necessarily in the same way that you did before you changed. And you could do better, or you might not be as compelling.
Well, plus, I think a lot of people, when they clean up, they find something else to fill in, that line about, they always say, I just had to fill a God-sized hole.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, maybe that hole actually looked like a bottle of booze.
Right.
Right. God doesn't look like a bottle of booze.
Or maybe they went on to be a good Christian act. Who knows,
Well, and I think that's part of the thing that happens is they fill it in with whatever else and become obsessed with that.
Right.
And that doesn't always lend itself to great art.
Right.
Sometimes they need the dogma of religion or some other philosophy to fill in that hole, and then their life becomes about that rather than the art that they had.
Well, and I just keep thinking about how blasé Keith Richards is in his autobiography, A Life, and he'll say, I was strung out on heroin for, this year and a half while we were making this record, and then I finally cleaned up, and I was clean for a year, and we were playing great, and then somebody gave me some some China White, and I was strung out again for another year and a half, and it's just like, no big deal.
Sometimes like you're on, you're off, it doesn't matter, you're still...
not everybody has a constitution like Keith Richards,
right.
but...
well, we're all different, so,
But it's just, everybody portrays addiction, and rightfully so, as this, tragic, life-stealing thing, and it definitely is that. And then relapse, everybody but some people are just so blasé about it.
And some people, something about it helps them create great art. One of the people that was does not really fit the category of, we missed his great art because he didn't live long enough. But Tim Hardin, who was a heroin addict after he came back from, I think he was in the Army, and he got addicted to morphine in the Army. But
when was this?
This is in the 60s.
Okay.
He was in the Army in Vietnam. But Tim Hardin created, Bird on a Wire, not Bird on a Wire, this is one of his best albums. But If I Were a Carpenter and Misty Roses and all sorts of great songs when he was a total heroin addict and his best work. But, he never cleaned up. He died of an overdose, too.
Okay. Well, I want to move on away from addiction and to a totally different realm.
Okay.
And two people that I think 100% or 95% would have been making great music for years and years and be influential had they not died. I want to start with Aaliyah.
Right.
She died in August 25th, 2001 at age 22.
Wow.
And in a plane crash in the Bahamas. So she had no agency in her own demise. She didn't have any self-destructive behavior. She started on Star Search as a teenager, and she started releasing albums when she was, I think, 15. And she ended up with, in that short amount of time, she had 12 top 10 singles, at least 4 number ones. I think the best one was One in a Million and Are You That Somebody? Now, here's the thing about Aaliyah is R. Kelly married her when she was 15.
Yeah.
And he was 27. Her parents had that annulled like 6 months later. But that was kind of a presumed hardship that she went through. Jay-Z had an interest in her. And a cool thing about Aaliyah, she also was a model. She was a beautiful person and an actress. And she had, before she died, she did Romeo Must Die. She had one of the lead roles in that at age 20 and 21. The year she died, she was the Queen of the Damned in the movie Queen of the Damned. So, and Whitney Houston was looking at her. Whitney Houston was going to do a new version of the movie Sparkle and use her. So she had just potential all around and all of these hits. And a curious thing about her, she was basically the same age as Beyonce. Now, when Aaliyah died, Beyonce didn't have any natural rivals. There are other women singers and all that stuff, but like Taylor Swift isn't really equivalent to Beyonce. They're years apart. Their styles apart. But coming out of the R&B world, it was just Beyonce all the way. And I think if Aaliyah had lived, they would have been natural rivals or collaborators or whatever, but they would have encouraged each other to get stronger.
Would have been centers of power either way.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows, Aaliyah may have ended up with Jay-Z because it was like 3 months after Aaliyah died that Jay-Z started publicly dating Beyonce. So, who knows, that could have been a seismic change. So her death, and a thing about that too, she died like 2 weeks before 9/11. And when she died, it was huge news and people were like, plane crash, and there are all these theories about someone undermining her. It was not a hoax, but like it was a planned crash. Someone was trying to kill her. Maybe it was R. Kelly, or maybe it was Jay-Z, or maybe it was trying to clear the way for Beyonce. Maybe, or, a lot of things. An uncle. There were all these theories, but as soon as 9/11 hit, it's like nobody was talking about Aaliyah anymore. Nobody was talking about anything else anymore. You remember as soon as that happened, other news just didn't matter. But I think another thing too is if she had lived, assuming she had lived, the whole R. Kelly thing. He's in prison now for racketeering and sex trafficking.
Right.
If she had lived, he was arrested in 2019 and he was on trial in 2021, 2022. During that trial, it came out that he was having sex with Aaliyah when she was as young as 13.
Oh my God.
Or maybe 14. So, it was just a tragedy. She was a beautiful woman who had so much going for her, and her sound was good. She sounded kind of like Mary J. Blige, maybe a little Janet Jackson, and she was about a decade younger than both of those women. So she would have been a force. It was all lined up for her. Like I say, no self-destructive behavior. And if she had lived too, I think she could have brought about the R. Kelly trial and evidence and stuff a lot sooner because, it took them 20 years or so to convict him and everything, if she had been alive. So 100%, I think she could have been around to, doing music for 50 or 60 years.
Yeah. Do you think she would have been an innovator? How do you think her music would be different now?
Well, I think she might have. Been an innovator in that, like I say, she had a. Not everybody can sing like Mary J. Blige,
Right.
And she had hints of that, even though she was young. And then the Janet Jackson thing, the performance thing. I just think she was so multi-talented.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she would have been an innovator so much as an influencer,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I think that other young women or men too, seeing what she can do and does do and how she applied herself.
Right.
And she was ambitious because, she was on Star Search as a teenager and
Yeah.
on TV. So she was just always going at it. So I think she would have been influential even if she wasn't inventing a whole new style of music. And there might have been more. There was kind of a void. Like I say, that there aren't really any natural rivals to Beyonce, who just completely owns, the 40-something R&B based, woman singer who's now doing country. So who knows? But I do think she would have pushed Beyonce, and Beyonce would have pushed her, and it would have probably been a good thing. Another one, similar, Selena, just known as Selena before Selena Gomez came around, but Selena Quintanilla Perez. The thing about her, she died at 23, and she was shot to death by the president of her fan club, who was a woman who was apparently embezzling funds from Selena. But Selena, she was, her father was Mexican American, and Selena was born in Texas, so she was a Texan. And she was what they call regional Mexican music, which is, includes California, Texas, and all that. And there are a lot of different types of Latin American music. Selena died in 26. And no, she died at 23, I'm sorry, in Texas. And she was called the Queen of Tejano music, but she also knew a lot of the other subcategories of, it's not just one thing. And she was bringing that to the mainstream. She was incredibly popular and just had a huge fan base both in Latin American and Spanish-speaking countries as well as the U.S., especially in the Southwest and all. And she was building on the kind of success that all the pop singers who came through the mainstream, came through the front door of American mainstream. She was coming through the back door with just armed with all different styles of Latin music that a lot of the Latin American people before her, like Ricky Martin or Enrique Iglesias or whatever, those people, they were just kind of doing American pop music. They may have had an accent, they may have done some Spanish lyrics, but she was bringing in kind of a natural love for the base foundation of Mexican regional music. So, and at 23, again, no self-destructive behavior on her part, except she argued with the wrong person, I guess. Yeah. But, she 100%, she was so ingrained. She had in 1994, the year before she died, she released the fastest-selling Latin American album of all time. So she was just like, and I think it was subtle, especially, to white dudes in Tennessee or whatever, that what kind of impact she was building, and she was just cut short. And I think that she's very similar to Aaliyah in that she had all these years ahead of her, and she would be very influential, and she could effect change that with a speed that other people haven't been able to accomplish.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I hadn't put him on my list, but it makes me think of Richie Valens, who died at 17.
Okay, yeah.
He had La Bamba, which was, a Mexican song that became a hit, a big rock and roll hit. He had one other hit, Donna.
And he was Plane Crash, right?
Yeah, he was a Plane Crash with the Big Bopper and Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
And, Buddy Holly's another one at that time that he was changing his style. I don't know that we would have gotten better than what Buddy Holly did. We would have gotten some good stuff. Mm-hmm. But with Richie Valens, he was only 17 years old. Yeah. Who knows what he would have done?
Yeah, and that's the same with these two women, is they were so young. Think about being, 22 and 23.
Yeah, just kids.
And then you cut off, and you have 4 years of oh my God, who is this phenomenon? And the good thing about their ages too is they had surpassed a lot of child stars fail when they become adults. Both of these had passed the teen years and gotten into their 20s, and they were just more popular than ever.
Yeah.
And then, that's it. So,
well, on the Plane Crash front, somebody who I definitely think would have done great stuff I'm staying in the older. I'm leaving you the
That's
younger,
fine. That's
the
fine.
newer stuff. But Otis Redding was 26 when he died in a plane crash
Yeah.
in Madison, Wisconsin, and Dock of the Bay hadn't even come out.
Okay.
He had just had his biggest successes. I mean, he performed at the Monterey Pop Festival, and he is by far the star of the Monterey Pop Festival. If you watch that movie, there is nobody who comes close. It's like Sly and the Family Stone at Woodstock. Mm-hmm. But he and Jimi Hendrix were on the same bill, and both just completely blew the audience away. Mm-hmm. But he decided he wanted to try to hit, like, the white kids, because he was the king of soul singers. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the best-selling probably of all of them, but he was moving on up, and white audiences were getting into soul music.
Right.
And, Try a Little Tenderness and all the other big hits he had. People were starting to get into him, and he decided to do Dock of the Bay, which is like basically a folk song.
Yeah.
And
Dock of the Day came out after...
it came out in 1967. He died December 10th, 1967.
Okay.
And he had just, like I said, he just played Monterey Pop. He had toured Europe. He was on the cusp of just really becoming one of the biggest things in music, and then had a plane crash.
Yeah.
And had started recording this kind of folksy stuff that really would have stretched out his audience and probably his songwriting.
Right.
He wrote Respect, and he wrote his version is good, but then Aretha Franklin gets a hold of it. And it's like...
But that shows his influence, though, and his talents beyond just him being at the mic.
Yeah, and the fact that he was listening, because after she recorded it the way she recorded it, he didn't completely adopt her style on it, but he upped the ante by, changing it up a little bit, making it more exciting than it was. But I think there's no telling how much good music he would have created, and how different it would be from what we know him as. I mean, it's all great stuff, but man, I really mourn what we didn't get.
Right. Well, I got a couple of guys here that I'm not sure that they would have been continued as successful as they were. That's Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. Now, they were proponents. They were leaders in gangster rap.
Yep.
Now, rap had already been through its debut into the mainstream, like in the 80s, and you had political type rap, like Public Enemy or whatever. Then you had comedic, top 40, watered down rap. And gangster rap was something different, and it was threatening. And I was thinking about it. It really appeals to a different type of person or a different type of mindset, because the gangster rap people, they're not heroes. There are a lot of people who like to celebrate outlaws, and that's exactly what they were.
Right.
And it was very misogynistic, and it was very homophobic, and it was very advocating crime and drug trafficking and guns. I don't know how many gangsta rap albums I heard with gunfire and everything. And Tupac, this is when they had the West Coast East Coast rivalry, and Tupac represented West Coast, and Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G., he represented East Coast rap. And they had been friends, but then they grew, more and more spicy with their words and everything. They were not good people. Tupac served time for sexual assault. Biggie Smalls served time for drugs, weapons, and assault. So they were living maybe not as extreme as they were in their lyrics, but they weren't, they weren't little button collar, white collar dudes, just going and doing it for an act. Tupac Shakur in '96, he was gunned down in a drive-by shooting in Nevada. And Biggie Smalls, about 6 months later, he was gunned down in Los Angeles. Drive-by shootings for both of them.
Right.
And a lot of questions about who was actually responsible, and even if somehow their teams were responsible for killing the other one. But they were wildly successful, and they were very influential in gangsta rap. But when I think about it, and I think, there are these many trends within every genre of music, like disco, for example. Maybe 5 years it had. Grunge, maybe 5 years, and it faded. And gangster rap was going to do the same thing. It didn't just stay gangster rap. eventually women rappers joined the fray
Yeah.
and kind of chipped away, and rap turned, into some different types of rap. But I think these two were so ingrained in gangster rap, I don't know what they would have done when it started dying. I don't know. And I mean, they had contemporaries about their age, like Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg. Jay-Z, though, was more... He was kind of like what you would call kind of hustler rap. He was just trying to make money. He's just like looking to make money. So he was like on the fringe of gangster rap, not really as... And Snoop Dogg was kind of there with the gangster rappers, but he was more comic relief. He was the big stoner. It was all weed for Snoop Dogg, so he was there for laughs. Obviously, Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg made the transition out of gangster rap and survived. But these two were kind of central to the whole movement. And I think they did more for gangster rap by being killed just because it lent like some authenticity, credibility to them. And this whole thing of celebrating outlaws and everything, I mean, I don't want to get political or anything like that, but I have to think that that's kind of some of the appeal that Trump has with his supporters. Yeah, and because he doesn't believe in the rules, and he'll smart off to anybody. He'll cut anybody down that he doesn't like. He'll say anything, and there's a subset of people who they're just drawn to that.
Yeah, and 50 Cent's a supporter, so,
And 50 Cent's a supporter. Well, yeah, and it's weird, but you can almost see, as impossible as that may seem, you can see some parallels there.
Yeah, I think you can,
they do the crimes, and they're misogynist, and they say all these nasty things, but somehow people love them anyway, and they're like, well, they just tell it like it is, or whatever.
Well, but then you got Ice-T, who plays now, after Cop Killer, who plays a cop on TV.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you can go in any direction. Yeah. I think Tupac and Biggie, and they had great music. I love California Love by Tupac, and Hypnotized, Biggie's best song, came out like just days before he died. And they had great music. I don't know, if they were authentically like the worst people in the world, but they were certainly caught up to some degree in the lifestyle that they were purporting.
Well, what do you think? I mean, what do you think they would have done? What do you?
I think they would have, it's hard to say because rap music, it did expand and it became less restricted to any one type of style. Right. I think they both probably would have survived to a degree, but they wouldn't have been the leaders anymore. Right. I think they would have been able to jump. You know how some artists, they lead a trend, and then they have to fall in line, and they're following other people. Yeah. And I think they could have done that. They also, they had big groups of people that were in their gang or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they probably would have tried to do some uplift for some of the younger people. But I don't think they would have ever been as popular as they were before they died. Yeah, I mean, I think Tupac, not to be controversial, but I think Tupac had a little more talent, than Biggie. But I do see both of them as potentially carrying through, but not being the big thing that they were.
Yeah, that's interesting because I haven't really thought that much. I mean, I'm not a big rap listener.
I know,
but I just.
But you know who they are.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I've heard all the stuff you've talked about. But it is interesting when something is tied to a. that there's a timeline on it. And you mentioned grunge. I mean, Kurt Cobain is one of those.
Yeah, I was going to come up to that because it's very much the same thing.
Yeah.
And Kurt Cobain, he died of a confirmed suicide.
Right.
Despite what, people want to say about Courtney being involved in all that stuff. On April 5th, 1994. And he had an overdose in March of 1994. Right. He obviously had mood problems and such. And I don't remember him as being like a big uplifter of other artists and such, It's like but he certainly was. It's like if there was any band that typified grunge, I would think Nirvana first, maybe Pearl Jam and something, but Nirvana. And he was definitely the face of grunge. There's no question to that.
And as far as as being a lyricist, he's the person who stands out as the most poetic of them. I think his lyrics...
Yeah, I think that's fair.
You look at it and you think, well, this is a guy who is literary. This is a guy who looks at things differently, and it's not just, let me see what I can get out there and scream out on stage. I mean, if you break his lyrics down, they're really beautiful.
Yeah. And he was a thinker, and he was brooding. I mean, he was a sourpuss, really, which is so.
I think obviously a deep feeler too.
Yeah.
Very
And I think
emotional.
that's part of
But
both his problem and his appeal.
Yeah, but he was kind of broken,
Right.
And Courtney Love maybe hastened that or helped it. I don't know. But if you look at, if he had not died, for starters, would Dave Grohl have ever done Foo Fighters?
Yeah,
I mean, Foo Fighters
maybe not.
ended up being wildly successful for a more protracted amount of time than Nirvana. And also, the whole Courtney Love, his wife, was the front woman for the band Hole. And they weren't really a Riot Girl, to distinguish, they weren't really a Riot Girl band, but they were kind of adjacent to the Riot Girls.
Right.
Riot Girls tended to be more political and feminist, and hers was more, had a foot in grunge just by the angst and all that. But then they were powerful women in rock, so they kind of helped the Riot Girls along, even if they weren't quite Riot Girls themselves. But her album came out exactly 1 week after he killed himself, like 7 days.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it was like, you can hear he clearly was an influence in her album, whether he just made it or he influenced her.
I think he influenced her, but I mean, those songs are too good, and I mean, her later songs were good too.
Right? Yeah, she turned around a couple of years after Kurt Cobain died and did Celebrity Skin. She had Billy Corgan with some of the songs. It was more polished than Live Through This. That was their album, the same year that Cobain died. But it's just kind of like, okay, might this have negatively affected Hole? If he hadn't died, might it have affected even Riot Girls, and might it have delayed Foo Fighters, or even maybe Grohl would have never gone to the Foo Fighters?
I think Dave Grohl would eventually started writing his own stuff and doing his own stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that Kurt Cobain, I don't think Nirvana would have lasted very long. I don't know what you guys think.
I think
Seemed
grunge
pretty volatile.
Yeah, I think by '94, I think grunge. There were cracks in the foundation, and it was about to go the way of really hard rock, and also Green Day. That's when the pop punk people came.
Right.
On. I could never see Kurt Cobain doing something like that.
See, I think Kurt Cobain would have gone the opposite direction. When you listen to the MTV Unplugged session, which is one of my favorite Nirvana albums, you can tell he has a feel for acoustic stuff and just, folkier things. I think Kurt Cobain probably would have released one or two more Nirvana hard rock albums, and then I think he probably would have drawn back for a while and done something very different. Yeah, if he could stay alive.
A lot of bands, who weren't central to grunge, that had a grunge era, they were able to just change their sound and move on. But when you're the front man of the quintessential grunge album, you can't disconnect yourself from it as easily as the other bands could. And also, I don't think Kurt Cobain. I think he had a lot of problems and issues going on. And I just don't think he was as ambitious. All these other people I mentioned were just ambitious, and he was like, well, I don't remember him like really lifting or producing other bands. Maybe I'm wrong. But
well, I mean, obviously he had an influence on Hole, like you talked about.
Yeah, right. But that's by virtue of being married to.
But he would, he would name check a lot of folks and say he admired different folks. I mean, the Melvins in particular. Of course, he and Buzz were friends and that. But he mentioned several different bands through the little time that he had the spotlight. But I think he was such a psychologically damaged person.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That, I mean, I doubt he would have lived much longer. But like I said, I think if he had, and he had gotten cleaned up, I think he would have found a place to make more great music that sounded really, really different.
Well, he was extraordinarily gifted.
Right.
There's no question about that. But it's just like, what would his drive be? And
well, I think the thing about ambition, I think he was ambitious and got where he wanted to be, and then was like, this isn't really what I expected it to be.
I think he saw the writing on the wall that grunge, again, 5 years. It was 94, and grunge kind of at the very end of the 80s was starting to break. So time was running out on just what he had been doing.
Well, I mean, but you go back to, back to that MTV album. He covers a Meat Puppet song and has one of the Meat. I can't think of the Meat. Kirkwood. Yeah.
Chris. Kurt. Aren't there two of them?
Yeah. But
Anyway,
the lead singer from the Meat Puppets was playing on that.
Yeah.
And the Meat Puppets. And that seems to be who Kurt Cobain really admired, are the people who really didn't fit into a category. Because even though you think of them as being a punk act, they're really kind of not. They're in that little periphery of, we don't know what it is. It is folky.
Right. I think just in context of who I've talked about so far, I would be more dubious about Cobain.
Right.
But he certainly was as talented or more talented than all the others I've talked about. So I wouldn't rule him out. I wouldn't say, well, he was washed up. But, he would have to have a major change. And maybe cleaning up or maybe getting his head straight would have prompted him to come up with a new sound.
Yeah, I think that would have happened. It's just the possibility that he never would have cleaned up and he was he was going to die no matter what.
Right.
Which is what I'm afraid is probably the situation.
Yeah.
Especially,
I think we're on the same page. I think, I'd give him, maybe a 50-50 odds, whereas I'd say almost 100% for Selena and Aaliyah. And I think that the Tupac and Biggie would have probably kept on just because they were ambitious. They did a lot of work. But Cobain is like, he wouldn't have had to. He would have made enough money already.
Yeah.
And it's like, and just having to shake the whole thing of being the face of a movement that was dying.
Yeah, and I don't think he liked being the face of a movement, period.
Right. No, I don't think he wanted to.
Yeah.
Which is all the more reason people wanted him to be.
Yeah.
Because of the type of movement it was. You wanted to pick someone who's disaffected and brooding and all that stuff. So.
Well, I hope you're going to bring up somebody else who we've talked about through the years who was addicted next.
Amy Winehouse?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and move on to Amy Winehouse. She died at 27, basically of alcoholism. She had some sickness and all too. This was in 2011. She released her Back to Black album in 2006 was the big breakthrough for her, and it had Rehab, which was just a across-the-board worldwide hit. Now, it was 5 years from that album till she died. She did produce music afterward, but nothing was as close to Rehab. But what I wonder about with Winehouse, her whole reputation was built on kind of being out of control and messy and a drunk, and that's where Rehab came from. And we kind of brushed on this earlier, but if she had cleaned up, and came out in a nice pressed dress with her hair styled and done, I don't know if she would have hit the same. I don't know if she would have resonated with people the way she did. And you saw the documentary, so you can probably speak better than I can to where her head was at. But I'm not sure that she wasn't just destined to be a messy artist and have a short time,
Well, I mean, in that movie, I recommend that movie, but be prepared that, I sobbed after that movie. It's the only movie I've ever seen where I actually just cried.
Okay. And she had mental illness too, right?
She had
substance abuse.
She had some mental illness, and of course, the substance abuse. But the big thing is she didn't have people around her that she could trust that were looking out for her interests.
Right.
If she had
isolated.
if she had somebody that she could trust that was trying to help her, I think she would have gone on to make way better music. Back in Black's a great album. But I think she would have made even better music because she started out wanting to be a jazz singer.
Right.
And I think
she had other aspirations.
Right.
And she just ended up in a place that she didn't really intend to go.
Right. And it was, I think the publicity, the pressure, all the reports about her, I think she is one of the most tragic stories of being a victim of the news, which she made herself, but she became the butt of all these jokes.
Yep.
And it overshadowed her art.
Yep.
And I think that affected her as a human.
Right.
And I just think if she'd gotten some intervention, if she really had gotten a decent rehab and somebody that was going to support her when she went, I think she would have made phenomenal music.
I think, no question, she had a remarkable talent.
Right.
You know, but it's just like it wasn't harnessed correctly. She didn't have people she could trust.
Yeah.
She ended up someplace she wasn't trying to go. And how is someone who's kind of out of control anyway going to find the resolve to claw her way back into an environment where she's in charge, you know, and she's calling the shots. And
Well,
she just never got there.
There are so many people that did go into rehab and came out. You know, they came out of it and didn't relapse. I mean, Warren Zevon relapsed several times, but he also kept making great music and he kept cleaning up. He was an alcoholic. And, I mean, that was really her problem, too, more than anything, I think, was the alcoholism. But, yeah, I think, I mean, I really see that one as a real tragedy because I think she, if she could have cleaned up, she would have had just scores of great albums and music that would be unexpected to most people.
Right. She needed to more than just survive the night she died, and she needed to clean up.
Right.
Otherwise, she was doomed.
Well,
she was fated to die if she didn't do something.
Well, you see the last videos of her, and she's skeletal. Yeah. She looks horrible. It just looks like she's starved herself.
Yeah.
But I think she is somebody that we just scratched the surface on how good she was and what she would have created. So that one to me is the biggest tragedy of the of the 21st century anyway, as far as music goes.
Right. I've got one more I want to dive into that's a different kind of case also, and that's Avicii. Mm-hmm. That's the stage name for Tim Bergling, who's a Swedish DJ producer. He was pioneering star in the mid-2010s, and he worked with everybody. And what he was doing, he was adding layers and context of dance music to all kinds of stars, from Madonna to Lenny Kravitz to, what is it, Dan Tyminski?
Dan Tyminski.
Yeah. And
who was the voice of I'm a Man of Constant Sorrow from the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack.
Right. So
and
he was like a bluegrass singer.
Yeah, he was with Alison Krauss and Union Station.
And he worked with Zach Brown, John Bon Jovi, Wyclef Jean. He would work with any artist of any age, any gender, any genre, any country, and he was just driving them in, changing the top 100, changing mainstream music with all of these different artists to sort of add an element. It's kind of like if someone just came along and added a guitar for the first time to rock music, and then all of a sudden everybody's got this guitar, and that's what he was doing.
Right.
But he had great anxiety, and he had health problems, and he had substance abuse problems, and when he died of suicide actually at 28 in 2018. He had quit touring the year before because that was just taken because he was touring and he was doing all this music. He had like 200 unreleased songs when he died.
Oh my gosh!
I know, and I feel like with him, I think he was just destined to have a short burnout. I mean, just like he was one of those people like
a shooting star.
Yeah, like a hummingbird or a worker bee that just works, and then they die. You know, and it's like
how long did he live?
He was 28. So he lived till 28, and he had like 4 good years of where everything had his hand in it. Everybody was working with him. And he just overcommitted, I think, and he just worked too much. And he was trying to tour for the longest time while doing all of this with people all around the world. And it was ambitious, and he found the sweet spot for mainstream music listeners where it wasn't too ravey or anything, but it just had these elements of dance music and the way he incorporated the vocals into the strain. So he was doing innovative work, whether you two would appreciate it, but he was doing innovative work to change just what popular music was everywhere in all the charts.
Well, that's one of the things I really liked is, I talked with Dan Tyminski after he recorded Hey Brother, and he was talking about how much he liked him, but he said it just came out of nowhere. He didn't know who he was at the time.
Right.
And he gets a call.
Didn't.
Right. And he gets a call, and will you sing on this? And it was like he had to check everything out.
Right.
But it turned out great.
Yeah.
And here's this bluegrass voice.
Yep. And it just fits so well.
It does.
It wasn't like a rave song with just so happens a bluegrass voice in it. It was like he tailored everything to complement the artist and not just forcing the artist to be something to fit his mode,
Yeah.
And he was a super smart, funny guy, but he just had everything. Like I say, he had anxiety. He had to quit touring. So he had mental problems. He had physical problems. I think he had some condition. I forget what it was, even apart from drug use. And then he just he killed himself.
Yeah, and it's a shame because, I mean, that's somebody that I think, just like you were talking about, I think he would have done some great, strange, different things. And wouldn't it be nice to have somebody who really could blend all these genres and get everybody to, listen to a little bit of everything?
Well, he put the groundwork in, so
Rick Rubin comes pretty close.
Yeah, he does. He does that a lot. John, do you have any of these that you're mentioning?
I got some. Jeff Buckley.
Yeah, for sure.
He died at 30. I can't remember. What's the name of that album that's got Hallelujah on it?
Grace.
That album sounds amazing, and that's more. I think Chris Wallace was the producer.
And that's really his own. I mean, he had like a live album before that, like a studio, live in the studio album. But I think that's his only album, wasn't it?
But his voice is just so fluid and so amazing, and he's bound to have had more in him.
Yeah, and his dad died young too.
Yeah.
His dad died of a drug overdose.
Yeah, Jeff Buckley went swimming in the Mississippi River.
Right.
He was drunk and high, I think. You don't go swimming in the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
I also have, we talked about this when we were discussing the topic, but no one's mentioned Nick Drake yet.
Yeah.
And Nick Drake.
He was super young, wasn't he?
He was 26.
Oh, okay.
I learned most of background about him from reading Joe Boyd, who was the producer, the Island Records producer. He produced a bunch of English artists, but he produced all of Nick Drake's stuff. And at first, they were planning to market Nick Drake as sort of a Cat Stevens, intimate singer-songwriter. And it's a pretty close fit, I guess. But he was just really, really shy. And they set him up on a tour of coffee shops around England. And
he was like debilitatingly shy, right?
Yeah, and he did like 3 shows, and he wouldn't talk to the crowd, and he would just kind of just walk up and just start playing, and he was really quiet, and the crowd would talk over him, and he just hated it. And after about 3 shows, he just went home. And he had been a student at Cambridge, but after the music thing, he quit to try music, and he moved back in with his mom, and he was on a whole bunch of mental health medications, and he
had some antidepressants, and his death may have been suicide or may have been accidental.
Could have been accidental.
Right.
But by the time they recorded his 3rd and final album, except for there was an album after that of just like off, B-sides and weird snippets that he recorded.
It's like a couple of things he hadn't put on the albums that were new. But.
Right, but Joe Boyd said that they would have to call his mom and say, all right, we've got a session booked for Nick on Saturday starting at noon, and if he can come down and record some of his new songs, and they would just be there, and Nick would just kind of wander in and sit down on a stool and take out his guitar and start playing, and they just have to get the mic set up because he wouldn't say anything to anyone.
Wow.
And he would just come in and play 3 or 4 songs and then just put it back and walk away, and they just had to take what they got.
He seems like one of those who is doomed unless he got help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his music is so haunting. His voice is really whispery and like he's whispering secrets in your ears or something. I always think of Nick Drake as good music to listen to on a rainy Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is, like, he really didn't find his audience until like 40 years after Pink Moon came out.
Right.
They used it in a Volkswagen commercial.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, everybody seemed to know about Nick Drake.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And there's many, many artists who use that as a starting point for their style. I mean, Josh Ritter sounds like Nick Drake. And,
Yep.
Off the top of my head, I can't name them, but I can always spot when someone's out there.
Iron and Wine, absolutely listen to a lot of Nick Drake.
Jose Gonzalez is kind of in that. It's just, as soon as it's like, he's doing Nick Drake.
Yeah.
It's a style. But he was a master finger picker and would really do these really intricate, arpeggiated finger-picked guitar parts that were just lovely.
And open tunings.
Yeah, and the orchestration on at least the first 2 records, I can't remember the name of the guy that did it, but the orchestration is magic. It's just perfect. It's not too melodramatic, but it punctuates and accentuates just the right parts. It's good stuff. He could have done a whole lot more if he could have stabilized himself somehow or treated his phobias and anxieties.
Yeah.
Right.
Another one is D. Boone,
Yeah.
guitar player for the Minutemen. Mike Watt, who was the bass player in the Minutemen, and D. Boone were childhood friends. And Mike Watt's still alive, and he's just a phenomenal bass player.
Nice guy, too.
And D. Boone died at 27 in a car crash. And when you listen to the Minutemen, it's D. Boone that's the brains, the heart of that whole outfit. And George Hurley and Mike Watt are just there to support D. Boone. And when he died, it just took the heart out of that band. They basically almost gave up music until
Yeah.
Ed from Ohio, just a super Minutemen fan, just begged them to play songs, and they became Firehose.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Mike Watt gives all the credit to D. Boone.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, they obviously loved each other.
Yeah.
I wanted to pop through some older ones quickly, just because it's like, what did they have left to give? One, I wanted to start with Prince, who died at 57, accidental overdose of fentanyl. Prince died in 2016, and honestly, I don't know what else he had to give, except that he was very good at elevating other artists and bringing other. I think that his music peaked in the 80s and maybe early 90s, and then it got progressively less engaging, less innovative. But I do think he could have been important to bring new artists along, because he always did that. That was a big thing of his. Michael Jackson, who died at 50 of an overdose of propofol. I think he was done. That was 2009. He hadn't had an album in 8 years. He had the scandals and all of that going on. It's like, I just don't see a path where he would have had anything more to give, honestly.
Well, I'm not a fan of much of his music anyway.
Right.
But, Thriller is great. Off the Wall's great.
Plus, it is his whole Peter Pan thing, his spry dancing and all. Once he's 50 and he's not done albums in years, I don't see where else his career could have taken him.
Yeah.
Whitney Houston, who died at 48, cocaine in her heart, and she died in a bathtub in 2012. Now, for Whitney Houston, I think she could have been like an Act 3 type performer, where she had a great vocal. And when you've got the great vocal, I would say the same about Sinead O'Connor, whose life was messy as all get out. I don't know how she could have avoided death. But, she, of course, did nothing compared to you. She died at 56. I think both of those women could have been like senior women doing more crooner-type songs or something like that, something poignant. I would love to hear the age in both of their voices.
Right.
That's what I would have figured for them. Dolores O'Riordan, she just came up in my mind because Garbage had a new album out a couple of months ago, and the band Garbage and O'Riordan's band, the Cranberries, they were kind of contemporaries of each other, and they both had the dynamic vocalist, Garbage with Shirley Manson, and then Cranberries with Dolores O'Riordan. But I feel like after hearing the Garbage album from 2 months ago, it's like, wow, it would have been interesting to hear the Cranberries in an older context, because they were a little more poignant. Garbage was more sass, and Cranberries were more, thought.
Yeah.
And the last one I want to say is Freddie Mercury, who died in 1991 at 45 from complications due to AIDS. Now, Freddie Mercury, first he had to basically be in the closet as a gay man,
right?
And then he had to super hide everything when he became HIV positive, when he got AIDS.
Right.
And you just think of all the constant turmoil of not being able to be who you were. And it would have been nice to see him live like another 30 years and see progress in the acceptance of LGBT artists, and also progress in the treatment of AIDS and HIV. It would have been so cool to see him come to the other side and live and see how much ground it's gone, and that he doesn't have to hide anymore, and to hear what kind of music a senior artist like Freddie Mercury could have made as a guy who came through the other side and didn't just, he didn't hide to everybody, but a lot of people just never knew or never wanted to know, when he had to, just all the paranoia and everything that he had to carry around. And then, of course, vastly multiplied when he had AIDS on top of everything else. And if he had lived.
Well, I think the thing with Freddie Mercury that's interesting is he is somebody. I didn't like a lot of the older stuff, the later stuff that they did. It was hit and miss. And then the last album, There's some really sweet songs on there, and you can tell he's writing about
Right.
his mortality.
I think he could have done like Bowie's last album. When
Right.
he knew he was going to die. I see Mercury could have done something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like
Well-
really hitting home and not just dancing around it.
And the thing with Bowie is Bowie was, I mean, he's like Bob Dylan was. I mean, you'd think, oh, well, he's done.
Yeah.
He's not going to do anything great after this. And then his last 3 albums were some of his best albums.
Yeah.
They're terrific. And it's like, it's inspiring when you have an artist like that. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm warned that even though he lived a nice, long life,
Yeah.
he was on the cusp of doing more really great
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, I mean, with Prince, I would hope that Prince would have gotten that way. I would have hoped that Freddie Mercury would have gotten that way. I know, but David Bowie would.
Yeah.
Right.
He was
Because
doing
he was
it.
already doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Freddie would have had a better chance just because he had a lot more to work through.
Through
and to get out there.
And he was, he was recording albums with opera stars, and
Yeah.
he was doing other things. He was expanding.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think he would have done some great stuff.
Right.
Well, I have a few more quick ones to run through. Ronnie Van Zant from Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
Ronnie Van Zant is a voice that we need because he came from the South, and he was, even though people interpret things like Sweet Home Alabama as being, pro-racism or whatever, it was the opposite. It was in character.
Right.
He wrote great songs, and he would have slapped around the rest of the band for what they did later.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
he was a real artist, and he was a smart guy. He would have
How
made
did he die?
plane crash.
Okay.
They would have Leonard Skinner would have done some even greater things, I think, than they already did, even though I think their catalog is amazing. Sam Cooke.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Cooke was
Yeah.
really, I mean, he had the potential in the civil rights movement. He was just getting into the civil rights movement when he died.
Yeah.
Could have been such a powerful voice.
He could have been, and I mean, some of the last stuff he did, gosh, my mind just went blank on one of the last songs.
Go on.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, he was terrific, and I think he would have done great stuff and would have, he was shot.
Yeah.
I think he would
How
have,
old was he when he died?
he was still in his 20s. I'm not sure how old he was.
Stand by.
Yeah. Phil Oakes. What?
Phil Oakes.
Phil Oakes, who was a contemporary of Bob Dylan. He had he died of suicide, and he had released what I think is his best album, Phil Oakes' Greatest Hits, which was a joke because it was all new material. But in about 1970, so he died 4 years after he released it. But he was exploring, like a lot of people were, country music, but he was exploring country music and classic rock and roll. And I think the songs on that last album, even though it disappeared and critics didn't particularly get it and the audience didn't get it, I think it's some of his best songs. And he's a voice I really would like to hear right now with all the political things going on, because he was the most political, pretty much, of all the political writers. Kirsty MacColl's another one. Kirsty was, a lot of us loved her to death, but her last album, Tropical Brainstorm, is the one that people started picking up on. I think Sex and the City used the song In These Shoes. And that really was getting her some notoriety. And she died saving her children in the water from the speedboat ran over them in Mexico. And Duane Allman, I don't know how the Allman Brothers would have been different, but they think they would have created a lot better music. I mean, they created some good music.
Rock and popular blues-based music in general would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, he played with everybody.
He played with everybody, and he listened to everything,
Yeah.
like a lot of these artists.
Car accident and
Motorcycle.
Macon?
Motorcycle.
Motorcycle. Both he and Barry Oakley both died from motorcycle accidents, like a year apart. And the last one is Hank Williams, who died. He was still I think he was 29 when he died, and he died from heart failure, probably caused by too many drugs. Chloral hydrate was what he had been given. And he was at the peak of his popularity. He was changing country music. And if he had continued to be a voice, I think he would have had another 10 years at least of writing great music and influencing country music and all music for the better. I mean, it's funny. Tony Bennett, one time I interviewed him, he'd recorded Cold Cold Heart. And he said he got a call in the middle of the night from somebody, and it was Hank Williams, and he said, "What's the idea of ruining my damn song?" But he was volatile.
Yeah.
But,
Well, a lot of these people were.
yep.
You know.
So there you go.
I've got one more.
Okay.
Elliott Smith.
Yep.
Had you already mentioned him?
I had not. I'd written him down, but I thought you were going to mention him, so I didn't say it.
Well, I mean, he did a lot of really great records, but I think he was still developing and getting better.
Yeah, as a songwriter.
As a songwriter and as knowing what he was doing in the studio.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he played, on those last couple of records, he played most everything on there. The drums and everything. And, yeah, that was a tough loss.
Yeah, and he died of a self-inflicted stab wound.
So did Avicii.
Was that how he?
apparently had a piece of glass, and he I don't know if he cut his veins or what.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow. Well, I think Elliott Smith actually stabbed himself in the heart.
God.
He was 34.
Wow.
Well, it's a shame we lost all these people. I think we can agree. Maybe we'll do one on people who should have gone.
No, I don't think we should do that,
No?
Chuck.
Okay, all right, we won't do that. People who outlived their welcome.
I do think, because we brought it up, I think we need to do one on people who had incredible second acts.
Yeah.
Because I think there are a lot of great artists out there that you thought, oh, well,
Started
they
one
did their
way and
best.
another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it was like, no, this is even better.
All right. Well, who's got recommendations?
Oh, you know we all do.
Yep,
Yeah.
we've got recommendations. You want to start?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just watched it was a Best Picture nominee. It came out in the U.S. in February 2025. I didn't know exactly.
Okay.
It was actually made a year before, or I think it was released in Brazil then. It's a Brazilian movie called I'm Still Here.
Okay.
And it's based on a true story of a family during the military occupation of Brazil, when they had military rule. And basically in this movie you fall in love with this family. They're just sweet, nice people, obviously, love each other very much, and the father is taken in for questioning. And that is where things really get going. It's not, it's low key, even though it's dealing with something very dark. But it's kind of a slow burn, but it's engrossing.
I don't remember anything about what I read about it other than it sounded interesting and like something I might like.
I think you would like
That's
it.
all I remember.
The actress Fernanda Torres won the Golden Globe for Best Actress.
Okay.
And an interesting little tidbit: you're watching the movie. There's a scene of her old in the end of the movie, and I was thinking, man, that is the best old person makeup I've ever seen in my life, because it looks,
Right.
it looks like her, but she looks old.
Right.
Well, it was her mom.
Oh, wow.
Where can somebody see this?
It's on Netflix right now.
Okay.
And I highly recommend it. Be prepared, though. It's not. I'm not saying it's not an easy watch, because it's actually kind of an easy watch the way it's constructed, but it's very, very sad.
Okay. Warned.
Well, I've got a movie that I watched last night on Netflix.
Fresh off the screen.
And Wayne, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be interested in it at all. But Chuck, I think you might be interested in
Okay,
it.
what is it? Tell me.
Well, it's part of a documentary series they're running. It's Untold is the name of this documentary series. But this movie is about the Michigan football sign stealing scandal.
Okay,
And
all right.
it was really interesting.
Okay.
Because, I mean, they're talking about, so when college football, when the players go on the field, there are people on the sidelines that are sending signals in
Yep.
to tell them the plays.
Yep.
And that's fair game. The other team
Yep.
can look at your signals, and that's all within the rules.
Yep.
And so then you've got to disguise your signals. And so you'll have like 5 different signalers on the
and
sidelines.
only one of them counts.
And only one of them. And so
Yep.
the team has to, so it's about this one kid, Stallion is his last name. And he grew up a Michigan fan, and Michigan fans are very dedicated fans.
Yeah,
They've got a long
they
and
are.
storied history in football. And he I think he wanted to go to Michigan, but he ended up going to the Naval Academy and then ended up becoming a Marine and rose to be a captain in the Marines. But he was always interested in Michigan football. And so when he was in the Navy, he started working on the sidelines of the Navy for the Navy football team, and he started interpreting the other team's signals, and he got really good at it. I mean, he just had a mind for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he started to be able to, he was standing right next to the coach, and he'd say, they're going to pass it to the left side, and they'd change the defense, and just, and Navy had the best record they'd ever had when he was doing that. And then he ended up joining the Michigan staff. But then he went over the line because he started, either he would go or he would send willing accomplices to opposing teams' games, not when Michigan was playing them,
Right.
other times,
Just
and
to read signals.
taking video of the
Yeah.
signals and then bringing it back and interpreting them all, so they had the signals in hand when they play, and that's cheating.
Yeah, and
No.
that happens in baseball a lot too.
Yeah.
Don't get me to start on the teams that do that, but I'm interested in that because I watch these coaches, and a lot of times they have notebooks over their mouths, so
Yeah.
you can't see anything.
You can't
they're
read their
saying,
lips.
You can't read their lips, but then you do see, and like I say in baseball, you'll see like the manager in the dugout and doing this and that, and grabbing his ear and spitting out some sunflower seeds and pulling his cap down and all that. And only one of those things means something.
Yeah.
And I enjoy watching that just to see which one it might be, which move, it's the fourth one, or if it's the one, where he's touching his chin or whatever. So.
Well, and you got to think that someone that's trained in the Navy and in the Marines to interpret signals, and this is a whole science that he developed, and it's just on steroids now. And also, that was Jim Harbaugh had come back. He had been a standout player at Michigan, and he had then gone through pro ball and all this stuff, and then he came back as head coach, and it was like the triumphant return, and he was not doing well until this Stallion guy started working for him, and then all of a sudden they were
they knew everything.
They were undefeated that season and headed for a national championship right when this whole scandal broke.
It does taint it, it certainly does.
It's a fascinating watch. It's on Netflix.
Okay.
Called Untold: The Sign Stealing Scandal or something like that. It's new.
Okay, I've got Materialists, which came out the end of June, directed by Celine Song. Celine Song was the director of Past Lives,
which we both loved.
Yeah, 2023. That was like my favorite movie of that year.
Probably mine too.
And
that was the one about the Korean woman that came to. Okay,
Yeah.
I love that one. I want to watch this.
Well, this one's different in many ways and then the same in one way, but this is called a romance film, Materialist is, but it's not a rom-com because there's precious little humor in it, really.
Okay.
And it's about, and at first I had just the worst sinking feeling at the beginning of the movie because the main character, played by Dakota Johnson, is like a matchmaker in New York City, and so she hooks people up, and if they get married, then there's a big celebration with the company she works for, and she had set up her 9th marriage or something like that. And it just had to feel like, oh my God, this is like Sex in the City. And I wasn't here to see Sex in the City. But it does take on the depth, slowly but surely, and it goes into similar themes of past lives about, destiny and who you were supposed to be with and who you weren't supposed to be with. And there is a heavier hand in it than anything I saw in Sex in the City, or Sex and the City. And the two guys, so this Dakota Johnson, she's actually very cynical about love, even though she does the math to figure out who would match with who, and it all depends on height and weight and careers and income and red hair or black hair or whatever. And she just seems kind of apart from it all while she's matching people up. She's got 2 men in her life that are surfacing here. One is Chris Evans, who had been with her for 5 years, and he's like this kind of sad sack, trying to make a living, trying to act, but he's taking catering jobs and anything he can to make a living. And he lives in a terrible roommate situation with like the worst roommate in the history of the world. And he loves her, but they just weren't right, and he wasn't up to her standards. And then she's got a new guy coming on to her, Pedro Pascal, who's what they call an unicorn, which a unicorn is one who has a great income and a great career and is very polite and intelligent and handsome and just all the great things, rich. And I got to tell you, and she has a boss who's got a lot of flavor and character, who, you know, to her character, and there's one of her main clients is also has a lot of character. My fundamental problem with this movie is Dakota Johnson sucks. It's like watching her because she's so flat.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I get it in interviews with her. I don't know if she's trying to project some kind of, you know, subtlety in her acting or whatever, but it's like, I don't see either of these men that are, you know, fawning over her. I don't see either of them really being interested in her. She's attractive, but this is New York City, so there are only, you know, hundreds of thousands of attractive women.
Yeah.
And same thing, Hollywood actresses. There are actresses more talented and more attractive than Dakota Johnson. I don't get it. I don't get her appeal. That may just be my problem, because otherwise I would give it a thumbs up. I appreciate the depth that it goes to. I appreciate, you know, this whole fuzzy concept of destiny and all of that, and like I say, both of the men and her boss, all the other actors are well played, but I just think there's a very serious casting problem with Dakota Johnson in a role like this.
I was going to go ahead. I was going to go see that this weekend, Chuck, but now I think I'll wait till it streams.
I don't know. I mean, if you like her, it may be me. It may just be a problem that I have with her that I just can't get past.
Is it in theaters now?
It's in theaters right now.
Yeah, just opened, didn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
but probably by the time this comes out, it'll be maybe streaming by then. So I don't know what to say. I mean, I appreciated the aim and Celine's song, you know, and that it did find some depth and that it did make you think and all that. But God, I would just see her and I'm like, show some emotion, laugh or cry or something. She's just flatline to me.
Well, I'll get back with you.
So think about it.
Yeah, well, we may see it still.
You want to move to music?
Let's move to music. And by the way, it hit me when we were talking about something else. The Sam Cooke song, "A Change Is Going to Come." I don't know why I couldn't think of "A Change Is Going to Come." But I mentioned it earlier. I want to recommend 1971, "Bird on a Wire" by Tim Hardin. And Tim Hardin is, of course, the guy who wrote "If I Were a Carpenter," and "Reason to Believe" is another one. Rod Stewart had a hit with "Reason to Believe." It was the B-side, I think, of Maggie May, or one of the other big hits. I think it was Maggie May. And it became nearly as big of a hit. But Tim Hardin was a tragic character and great songwriter. But in 1971, he released this album, and the opening track and the title track is a cover of Leonard Cohen's song "Bird on a Wire." Bird on the Wire. And Tim Hardin got with jazz artists, including Joe Zawinul, and it's great. It is just this really, you were talking, John was mentioning, you know, albums for a rainy day. It is a perfect rainy day album.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit jazzy. He covers a song that Porter Wagner made famous called "A Satisfied Mind," and listen to the way Tim does it. It's just stunning. I mean, it's so relaxed and so beautiful, and you get the lyrics. And I mean, I like Porter's version too, but it's very different. And he covers a song called "Moonshiner" that's an old folk song, and it's got this orchestration with it that's very subtle but really pretty. And he's got this great kind of soft, languid voice.
Okay.
And yeah, I think you would really, really like it. But like I said, it's a great rainy day album.
I would love a rainy day too. It's
it's been hot, but it's
that's a Kiss album.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of sultry too. It sounds like he's got a song called "Summer Breeze," and it's just something that
nothing like drowsy, comforting flirtation.
Exactly. That's kind of what it is.
And that falls right into my Goldilocks zone of record production, 1971.
Oh, it sounds great. I can't remember. I don't know who produced it, but it is really good, and I think you'd both like it.
I'm going to listen to it later tonight.
Produced by Bob DeVere and Ed Freeman. Ed Freeman, I've heard of. Bob DeVere, I don't really know anything about. But anyway, that's it. Tim Hardin, "Bird on a Wire."
All right, well, I've gone back into the Wayback Machine for mine.
Okay.
Instead of, because I normally just pick something new, but I just ran across this album on my feed, and I thought, I hadn't heard that album in a long time, and it's 1999's Do the Collapse by Guided by Voices. And Guided by Voices, they're hard to keep up with because they release like 3 albums a year. They did, like 3 albums a year, and Robert Pollard, who's the main songwriter, he'd also do 2 or 3 solo albums a year, and he'd just drown in material. But their early recordings, they recorded themselves in their basement in Dayton, Ohio on a 4-track, and that's kind of the charm of their early albums because they just did it all themselves and they didn't pay attention to the conventions of rock albums, and they just recorded anything they wanted. But this was their first attempt to go into a real studio, and it's produced by Rick Ocasek from the Cars.
Okay. Yeah.
And they are a notoriously drinking band, and Rick would not let them drink in the studio, and so they were very focused on this album, and it's got so many great, really well recorded rock songs, and Robert Pollard's voice, I don't know, his vocals, his lyrics are sort of stream of consciousness, but he puts words together that kind of combine in your brain, and you come up with these images of weird, twisted things, and so it's polished and sounds good, but it's still got weird, twisted lyrics and weird, twisted chord progressions. And there's also, you can hear little keyboard parts and stuff that you think, oh, that sounds just like something would be in the Cars. And Greg Hawkes, that guy, wasn't that the keyboard player? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like something he would do. But it's a great record, and then I just all the way through. It's good.
What's the name of it?
It's called
again?
Do the Collapse.
Do to Collapse.
Do the Collapse.
Do the Collapse.
Do the Collapse from 1999.
And if you don't like if you don't like one of the songs, don't worry, it won't last long because they're all short.
The songs are really short, short and catchy.
All right. I'm going to recommend La Tigra, the album This Island, which was their 3rd and final album. It came out in 2004. This was a electro pop punk feminist all-female group. You know, I've got to keep throwing these out. I've got 1 million of them, people. It's like, you think I'm going to run out, and I got more for you. La Tigra was founded by Kathleen Hanna of Bikini Kill, and also featured Joanna Fateman, and there was a woman, Sadie Benning, who was there with the beginning of the group in their first album, but she was replaced by J.D. Sampson. Footnote, Hannah is married to Ad Rock of the Beastie Boys. Just a little side note. But being a feminist group, I don't think that should matter. Their best song was probably from their first self-titled album from '99, Decepticon. But This Island, their 3rd album from 2004, that one they had more together and they had better, more material. And it's got like left-wing social political stuff, but it sounds like lo-fi electro pop, and the reviewers were all over the map trying to figure out what they were doing and what they were up to and everything. But the songs I would recommend from This Island are After Dark, TKO, which reminds me a lot of Hot to Go. I wondered if maybe Chapel Roan might have gotten a little inspiration from them. Nanny Nanny Boo Boo, and they did a cover of Pointer Sisters' I'm So Excited.
Oh.
So again, that's La Tigra, and there, in case you're wondering, there was an outfitter called La Tigra, a design label in the United States. They created it to compete with Lacoste, and they had limited success with that, but I think they've come and gone and come back and gone again, and so there may be a La Tigra line out there, but I don't think it's connected to the group. But that's La Tigra, This Island from 2004.
Cool.
All right.
I've said everything I'm going to say.
I've said everything I'm going to say, except if you have any ideas for us, please write us at howweheardit.com. howweheardit@gmail.com.
We'd love to hear from you.
howweheardit@gmail.com. If you've got ideas, send us an email. You can also find us on all the social media under the name How We Heard It. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and X and Reels. So anyway, we're out there. You can
We're
engage
fun
with
little
us.
cartoon dogs and cats.
Yes. And you're a mouse.
Promos.
Squeak.
Yeah. John is our lovable
I love
mouse.
cheese.
I'm a bullying dog, and Wayne is
But fit, very fit.
Well,
Yeah.
Sarah said, I just love it when Chuck's tail wags.
yeah, my tail just starts wagging. I don't know why. I can't control it. It just happens. It's beyond my control.
I think I know who can control it.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll be back next week. Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to How We Heard It with Chuck Campbell and Wayne Bledsoe, a podcast about music, movies, art, culture, whatever it is that's on their mind. How We Heard It was recorded at the Arbor Studio in Knoxville, Tennessee by me, John Baker. How We Heard It is a Cozy Planet production. If listening to this podcast has given you a burning sensation, then we recommend you sit in a hot tub until your symptoms fade away. If you'd like to reach out to Chuck or Wayne or even me, you can send an email to howweheardit@gmail.com. So thank you for listening, and come on back and we'll have another episode for you next week.